Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for being here. As always, today we've got an awesome show. We're talking about NFTs, philosophically, the NFT space, how it's a new medium for creation, lots of cool stuff. And we've got an awesome guest, Chris Jericho, the myth, the legend, a wrestling champ in his own right. So let's welcome him to the show. Thanks for being here, Chris.
I'm not a myth. I'm real.
He's real. He's
I'm
real.
here.
And you can see.
You've captured the Bigfoot. The myth is true. So yes, I am
Exactly.
here. We're here to dispel some myths about NFTs.
No doubt.
If I should
Yeah.
be so bold. Yes.
That is the way to go. So, I mean, that's a great place to start. You've got an NFT drop. You had an NFT drop on the way. Can you explain a little bit about that for folks that might not have seen those announcements and learned about, your foray into the non-fungible token space?
Well, I mean, yeah, the first NFT that we put out sold out in less than 2 weeks, which was very interesting for me because, just to kind of delve right into it, obviously, I'm sure your viewers are far more familiar with NFTs than my fan base was,
Right.
and even me. Same question. What is an NFT? What is this? How is it even a thing? It doesn't make any sense. You hear a lot of that sort of comments about it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I wanted to do one and just kind of see how will it go? Will my fan base be into it? Will I be into it? And that's kind of where it all started.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a very successful initial foray into the world of NFTs, and also first of many at this point.
That's awesome. As someone who's deep in the creative space, what drew you to do an NFT drop and to learn the ins and outs of this space and bring that to your fans?
I think just because I always like to stay ahead of the curve. As my good friend Kevin Smith says, I like to go where the puck is going,
Right.
not where the puck is. And I had heard about an NFT and kind of had the same attitude about it that a lot of people, like, oh, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start really getting into it and figuring out what it is. And you realize, like, the best example that I can have is that there is a Wayne Gretzky rookie card that I have had in my possession since I was, 9 years old. I remember getting it and I kept it, and it was in a little case and all that sort of stuff. And I had it for the better part of 40 years. And then
Mm-hmm.
suddenly one day I couldn't find it. And that's when people was like, oh, this card is worth $500,000 or,
Man.
hundreds of thousands. I'm like, where the fuck is my Gretzky card?
Yeah.
And that honestly, we're laughing about it, but that was where I really started understanding what an NFT is. An NFT is a modern version of this hockey card. And if you have a Gretzky rookie NFT, shall we say, not that there is such a thing, and you bought it, you could essentially never lose it. I mean, I know there is ways you can lose it, but
Mm-hmm.
for the most part, it's there. You have it. You have access to it for the rest of your life. And it's sold and bought the exact same way that a card used to be, except for now it's all done basically, and I'm probably butchering the terms and forgive me, but basically done digitally, which is how most forms of entertainment are bought and sold now. If you look at, as I'm just looking at a box that I got today from Iron Maiden, the new Iron Maiden album is in here. It's a great souvenir. You can see I have some albums behind me.
Mm-hmm.
But they're just to look at. They're not to listen to. If you're going to listen to a record, you listen to it via streaming. If you're going to watch a movie, you stream it. If you're going to read a book, I mean, you could pretty much do Kindle. And as I get older, Kindle's easier to read because I can zoom in on the words. So NFT is kind of the next example of that, to where it's selling art online that exists in the blockchain, exists in the cloud, exists in the Ethereum. Unlike a painting that you used to be able to put on your wall that could burn up in a fire, for example. So
Mm-hmm.
long story short, I wanted to get involved in this because I could see it becoming something very viable and something very real. It is now, but in 2, 3, 4 years from now, NFTs will be as common as a podcast. And the reason why I mentioned that is when I first started my podcast, Talk is Jericho, 8 years ago, Nobody knew what a podcast was.
Right.
What is a podcast? Who's going to listen to it? Who cares? Who's going to listen to a 60-minute interview? And now here we are. It's funny to even think back about that. I wanted to have the same experience and influence with NFTs in 2021 that I did with podcasting back in 2013.
Yeah, I mean the best way to learn something new, especially when it's sort of a paradigm shift from physical collectibles to a digital world with so many new opportunities and new mediums to create. And the best way to learn is to go out there and do it and build something and see how people react.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like I wanted to build like, I think NFTs, let's say we've been hearing about it basically for a year, let's say. And I remember, Rob Gronkowski was the first one that I remember. Gronk has an NFT and he sold them for $1 million for what? And it's these cards or whatever it may be. And then a bunch of people put them out, and then the quality starts declining to where now just having NFT isn't an instant sellout.
Mm-hmm.
So when we started thinking about what would it be, I wanted it to be something unique and original to NFT. I didn't want it to be just a Jericho picture or a video clip of Chris Jericho. I wanted to create something new. Like if you're only going to be able to buy 48 of the Painmaker NFTs, which is what we had, I wanted to be only 48 of this one specific imagery. And in this case, it was basically I believe it was like an 18-second piece of animation almost. And then when that one sold so quickly, it's like, well, what can I do now? Well, why don't I continue the series? Like I didn't originally think about this as a series, but then I started thinking, well, let's go back to the serials of the 1940s, Tom Mix, and you really want to get old school with, that sort of stuff, and Lone Ranger and that sort of thing. You would watch a 15-minute serial in a movie theater, and then the movie would start and the serial would end. And then the next month you'd come back and see the second part. That's kind of what I want to do now with the NFTs, is do different chapters that, they all string together. So if you bought the first one, well, why would I buy the second one? Because it's almost like a comic book or a serial, or, there's a cliffhanger where you can buy them all and make a big long story. So that's kind of where the idea was. And like you said, that's the best way to get involved in it, is to start creating. And I was really happy with what we were able to come up with. And also too, to take this character of the Painmaker, which was one of my, personas that I did mostly just in Japan. I've used it twice in AEW, but I thought the whole NFT realm can be where the Painmaker lives. And we can do the Painmaker serials, and we can do a Painmaker comic book, and we can do a Painmaker movie. Like, I don't know, whatever we want to do, because I think it's a great kind of character that lends itself to this. It's a comic book character that we can now do whatever we want with in this other world that, as time goes on, more and more people are becoming familiar with.
And if you look at it from the perspective, like what NFTs and what the underlying technology gives you as tools to create cool things, these are now building blocks that you're putting out there, these serials, these small pieces of content that can be sort of stacked together to build all these cool experiences. I mean, you see people bring in real world and real life experiences into the mix as well. You mentioned Kevin Smith bringing sort of a role in his movie by, bringing an NFT out that's like a pass or a ticket to those rights. So really cool.
Well, he's basically selling his whole, and that's another reason why I got involved in this. I'm in Kilroy was here. Awesome. And that's one of those things where, like, we filmed this almost 3 years ago now. And, Kevin goes off and saying how great Jericho was. In my opinion, it was a great shoot. I still haven't seen it. But I want it out there. And I'm like, where the fuck is this thing? And now he's releasing it as an NFT, which is like, it's put so much of a spotlight on this movie that probably wouldn't have been there if he just would have released it to Netflix or Amazon Prime or whatever, what have you. So that's another thing. And I spoke about this on my podcast that I did about NFTs, trying to educate my fan base about it, was that, Kevin's doing the first NFT movie. You think it's going to be the only one? Of course not. And then you got Joe Bonamassa, who's doing the first NFT song. He recorded a song that he's doing as an NFT. You think that's going to be the first one? Of course not. This is going to become a thing that continues to expand and evolve to where NFTs are going to be, just like I said, just as familiar in our lexicon as a podcast is. So and it's funny, I've told the story before, but when NFTs were first suggested to me by my manager, I literally, I'm not trying to be a smart ass, like, what is an NFT? A non-fungible token. I literally said, like, what does that mean? Like, is that some kind of a mushroom? Like, what are you fucking talking about?
Yeah.
Fungible fungus. It's like, that's a terrible name.
I get that.
But NFTs will just move on to where it's a thing. So we have to educate people as to what it is. But the people that are in the know are really, really involved in this, and are collecting and trading and spending money and making money hand over fist as this becomes more and more of a phenomenon.
Yeah, and you look at also how it blends so well into other sort of innovative technologies that are being applied to experiences and content. One of the places that I think is really exciting is augmented reality, virtual reality, and being able to actually, you mentioned that the tactile feel of being able to see your records behind you, to be able to interact with a piece of art and actually physically see it. You now have NFTs being represented digitally in this virtual world that you can experience. And so I can only imagine NFTs like yours playing in a grandiose theater in front of you in virtual reality. It's pretty cool.
Well, yeah, and you can actually even buy, certain types of like picture frames, for example, digital picture frames where you can display your NFT. I mean, it really is clever. And now that I'm kind of over on the other side of understanding it, it really does. It's like, it reminds me of one of those pictures that were really popular, like in the 90s, where you stare at something and it's like a bunch of blobs and like squares, and like you just look at it and suddenly like you see, oh, it's a cruise ship with pirates on board. You see this whole, oh, it's a castle being attacked by knights. You just see nothing until you see it, and then you can't stop seeing the castle.
Yeah.
Kind of what NFT is like. When this went on sale, and I would read the comments, and a lot of people like, this is a ripoff. You're ripping off your fans. What are you really getting? And it's like, I know you don't understand it, but trust me, I wouldn't be doing this. I'm not, if I was going to rip off my fans, it wouldn't be for 30 grand for selling 48 NFTs. This was not a cash grab. This was an experiment to see how it goes. And then once it was so successful, now I have some experience and some currency, not literal currency, but some brain currency to know, like, okay, now I can really start working on this. And yeah, of course, if there's money to be made, you want to make it. But to me, it's more about the creativity of it and getting involved in something at the ground floor. Once again, like I said, in 4 or 5 years, when everybody's talking about NFTs, a lot of people will be saying, oh, I learned about NFTs from Chris Jericho. And I know I've said it a bunch, but it's the same thing I learned about podcasting from Chris Jericho. So it is exciting to me, because this is going to be a household name and a household way of buying art very, very quickly. And it already is to certain households, but pretty soon it'll be to all of them.
That's a great point. And you mentioned something interesting too, right? It's now that you've done that first run, you release some NFTs, you get an understanding not only just of what the process is, what they're all about, but also the fan response, the customer response. What is it like in the future? Like, what are you looking at to do? I know you mentioned a couple things around the next series. What are some of the creative ideas that you're cooking up that you can share at least?
Well, like I said, I really do like the idea of making this an ongoing series. It's one of those things where the first one was never meant to be like the beginning of anything, but as soon as I see it, and then I think, well, what can we do next? Well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So we know that people enjoyed that one, and it was really cool. Like I said, I have to be impressed by it first and foremost. And if I don't think if I'm like, I know my fans will feel the same, because they expect nothing but the best for me, because they know how I am. I don't do cash grabs. So when this piece of, like I said, this piece of art, this animation came, I was like, this is great. I think there was something like, I don't remember what the designer said, 50 or 75 moving parts to this NFT. So then once they sold so quickly, I thought, well, that's really cool. So maybe I'll do another Painmaker NFT, but what would it be? And it's like, well, what if the first one, he comes out and he's there and there's fire in his eyes. I don't know if you've seen it, and the spikes come up. Like, what if that was preparing for battle? Like, what if the next one sees his face and then it pans over to here where there's a giant, multi-tiered insect or whatever the hell it is coming at him, and that could be like the second one, and then maybe the third one the battle begins, and the fourth one the battle ends, and the fifth one he continues on and into a castle. You know what I mean? Like there's so many things we could do with it, and kind of write these 20-second little chapters as we go. And to me, like, that seems like a really cool idea. And I also like the idea of a comic book, of an NFT comic book, and how that works. I don't know, because I haven't done one yet. I've seen one. And then the other idea is, I know that basically my next NFT is going to be in conjunction with Kilroy Was Here. And I've seen that one too, which is great, which is basically my character in almost a living, breathing comic strip. I think they're doing it almost like Creepshow, if you've ever seen that movie, where the comic strip is here, but you see the people moving in it and stuff. So doing some stuff with Kevin Smith as well, because of course he is very much involved in the NFTs, not just with Kilroy, but with his whole View Askew universe as well. So I think the second one will be more Kevin Smith, kind of a co-write, shall we say, a collaboration. But the Painmaker one, I'm envisioning kind of a really cool story that we can tell, keeping it the same vibe with the 15 to 20-second clips, and just seeing what the next part of the adventure is after that.
I think it's rad. It's a new fan experience. It's a new way to get, to have a piece and to feel a different type of connection to, to somebody who really resonates with you and creates stuff that you like. And the more utility you can build around it over time, incentivizes people, I think, to jump on and say, hey, I want to own that, an early piece of Chris Jericho's NFT history.
Well, and that's another thing too, is that people think, okay, it's expensive, right? Like, the original one was $650. Well, that's because there's only 48 of them in existence. Yeah. And we can't, after those 10 days or whatever it was, or 2 weeks, it's not like you go, well, just make another 48. We'll just keep it going. No, that's it. 48 done. And then what people do is, well, where's the value in that? Well, same thing with the Gretzky rookie card. There's only so many of them made. So if somebody wants to buy one from me, they're going to have to pay a certain price. And as that price goes up, so does the value of the NFT, and so does the money that you can make off it. So that's another thing too, that there's a whole trading network to this as well, for people that are watching that don't understand NFTs. I'm sure there's not a lot on this show, but that's the whole other thing that I think people need to understand. It's like, what do you do with it when you buy it? Well, you can keep it. Like I said, think of it as a hockey card. Think of it as a painting. When you buy this thing, what do you do with it? Well, whatever you do with any piece of art that you buy. And then when you decide to sell it, how valuable is it? How many of them are there? How coveted is it? How many people want it? And like you mentioned, hopefully there'll be a lot of people that the very first Jericho NFT over time will continue to gain in value, because it's the first and there's only 48 of them. So I think we're only just beginning when it comes to that. This NFT that we just sold last month is not the be all end all, and it's not going to end when that 48th one was sold. It's only just beginning now, as they start getting out there into the market, as people start to trade them and other people want to buy them. And like I said, if we continue this series, well, if you came in at number 2, what are they going to want to do? It's like comic book collecting. Well, I got to get the first issue too. Well, it's pretty expensive. Well, I don't care. I got to have it. That's what collectors do.
Yep. The secondary market's a wild beast, because you never know. Right. It's all about what someone values something at, and it varies greatly. And so I think the last place I wanted to go here is to kind of talk about holistically the creator space, right? Of course, there's people with an established brand and fans and people who want to consume content or collectibles, whatever that might be. Then there are also creators who don't have that notoriety yet, that are still growing into their craft, growing into their trade. And NFTs are a place where they can get lots of eyeballs to look at their stuff, potential customers, buyers of their stuff. So I learned a little bit beforehand, before we started, about efforts with Phantasma to really enable and help these smaller creators grow. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Well, once again, I think anytime, and I keep stressing how important it is to come into this at, the first floor, at the
Yep.
ground level, like I said. So now that gives you a little bit of influence because of all the NFTs. I'm sure there's been quite a few successful ones, but I'm sure there's been quite a few ones that did not succeed. I
Plenty.
mean, John Cena just did a story. Actually, I was going to send it to David and Barry, the guys that I kind of my team, my NFT team. I forgot to do
Hmm.
that, where John said that the NFT was a bomb. He goes, it was a complete bomb. We never
Hmm.
should have done it. It was too expensive. It's a saying in wrestling: if you give the people what they want, they'll buy it.
Hmm.
If you give the people what they don't want, you can make any excuse in the book, from, oh, there's a new traffic light in town, to, McDonald's is open. There's a million excuses you can give as to why something doesn't sell. The
Hmm.
number one excuse why something doesn't sell is people didn't want it. You have to give
Yeah.
them what they want. So because I was able to do that, I think now I have a little bit of influence. So to deal with the Phantasma and that whole side of things, um, I have a little bit of steam. Am I at the Ashton Kutcher smelly cat, or whatever the hell his one was that sold, $800,000 in revenue? No. Am I at the Gronk level? No. But am I at a level probably just slightly underneath that? Yes. So you do have influence, where you can kind of help spread awareness
Hmm.
and kind of spread the wealth, so to speak. And I'm all for that because, once again, we're all learning about this together. There's
Yeah.
obviously experts that know everything about NFTs. I'm not. I'll be the first one to come and say, I'm learning as I go.
Yeah.
And the first way of learning was looking into it. Second way of learning was doing one. Third way of learning was doing a podcast to explain it to me as much as it was to the listeners that I have. And the
Totally.
fourth one is to kind of now take that knowledge and use it to kind of really help expand this whole NFT universe, shall we say.
So, last question of the day here. 5 years from now, where is the Chris Jericho NFT experience and where's the NFT space in your mind? Totally from your imagination, from your understanding of the space, like what do you see this growing into over the next 5 years?
Well, I mean, if you're talking about NFTs in general, like I said,
Yep.
I think it's going to be a complete household name where everyone's going to understand it. And are baseball cards and hockey cards going to disappear? Of course not. Are comic books going to disappear? Of course not. But is it another realm and another way to sell these types of things? Absolutely. Another way to collect, and I think it's very important because everything has moved on to the blockchain, the cloud, and I just think the way the world is, we're very much, you want it when you want it. You don't want
Yeah.
to have to go search for it and buy baseball cards or hockey cards in a pack and look through them and like, oh, I got a Sidney Crosby, I did it. Now there's something to that, but I'm also 50 years old and those days are gone.
Mhm.
Going to the record store and waiting for the new Iron Maiden album to be in the shelf, that's gone. This is the new version of what we were talking about for all of these things. So I think it's going to be everywhere. And Chris Jericho's involvement, like I said, this was the first one of many. I wanted to start getting involved and do some experimentation as to what I can do. So in 4 or 5 years, uh, I expect there to be a whole Chris Jericho NFT industry. I really do.
Love
The
it.
same way that Talk is Jericho is one of the top podcasts in the world, because once again, when I started, there wasn't as many podcasts and I was able to cultivate a great fan base. Fast forward 8 years and there literally is, Ashashi, a million podcasts plus. Think about that. Over
At
a
least.
million podcasts.
Yeah.
And Talk is Jericho is in the top 0.001% because I was able to establish myself first and keep the quality high. That's
That's
important.
key. Yeah.
Very much key. So I expect to do the same with NFTs. I'm establishing myself now. Over the next couple months, we'll have even more. And then people know the Jericho NFTs are great. They always are cool. You got to check them out. And then when there's a million NFTs out there, I expect mine to still be in the 0.0001 of the top because we got into it first and kept the quality high.
Love it. And so I'm speculating here. This will be for a reward for somebody who's, stuck it out and watched till the end of the video, stretching the human attention span's limits. you've got a rad band as well, right? So we know
Thank you.
you're in
Yeah.
the music space. Is there anything that we could expect from the music side of the whole holistic Chris Jericho experience?
Well, I mean, like we talked about when I see Joe Bonamassa, and I watch him because he's very much, I'm not even a fan of his music. You know, I'm a fan of his playing and what he does. But
Hmm.
if you don't know who he is, he's a blues guitar player, kind of like a Stevie Ray Vaughan of a modern era. But he has done everything his own way. He has his own record company. He's his own booking agent. He's his own manager. He's
Hmm.
all doing it in house. So when he decided to release an NFT song, I'm like, okay, there's something to this now. Bonamassa wouldn't do that just to be wacky. There's obviously some business here for it. Once again, like Kevin Smith with Kilroy was here, he's made this movie into something that everybody wants to see now, rather than just some movie that just went right into streaming that you can watch if you really are looking for it. So I think that Fozzy could easily get involved in that, and that will be something that I'll think about and suggest to the guys in the band. Because once again, now I
Yeah,
have
there's
to be
other
the
people.
Pied Piper to explain it to Fozzy's manager and to my partner Rich Ward. And there's definitely something to it, and we're all thinking ahead at all times. So what I would like to do is we have a new record in the can, but that's record is done. The next kind of song that we do, if it's a B-side or something like that, rather than just release it out into nowhere, put it up as an NFT. There's only 500 of these available for $50 each or $100 each or whatever you want to charge, and just see how it goes. And I guarantee, sad as it is, there's been songs that we've done that have been LP only, vinyl only. And, you know, how many people are buying vinyl? So maybe
Yeah.
200 people or 300 people bought this album with this one song on it,
Yeah.
and it's not online. So it basically doesn't exist. You could do that with an NFT and then trade the song, like we said, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's a very smart idea and something I'm very, very interested in. I just have to present it to the guys and explain it to them the way that it was explained to me.
Love it. Well, I'll be a buyer of that of said NFT music. So looking forward to it. Fingers crossed that lands and that happens. Chris, thanks so much for coming and sharing your philosophy. I think it's really good for people in the space, particularly ones who are really close to the NFT space, to see all the opportunity that there is in like just there's so many more communities that don't know about this yet. And I think communities like yours coming into the space, et cetera, is really helpful in the crypto world.
Well, like I said, man, it's very exciting for me because I'm learning, and I'm always, it's the same reason why I did Dancing with the Stars 10 years ago. It wasn't just to
Yeah.
be on the show. It was to learn about dancing, to learn the art
Right.
form of it. And
Yeah.
it's just as exciting for me to be learning the art form of what an NFT is. And once again, being ahead of the curve. So, I'm all in. It's really exciting. And I appreciate you having me to discuss, because every time I get to talk more about it, I'm learning more as well.
Beautiful. That's all I could ask for. So thanks so much for doing that. Folks, if you're watching the show, you have questions, leave them in the comments down below. We'll for sure get to them. And Chris, you have a fantastic rest of your day, my friend.
You too, man. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely will do. Cheers, everybody.
All right. Thanks, guys.